Never before has mental health been such a concern across the globe. I think it's universal that it's something that we're so focused on. Interestingly enough, my father, who's 93 years of age in about a week, said to me once he doesn't understand what the word stress means. He's never had any. And I think that's a really interesting indicative of how the world has changed over nearly a century. To hear from a man who says to me he doesn't understand stress and he's never felt it or known what that means, to being exposed to people around us on a daily basis who feel that stress, anxiety, depression, post traumatic stress disorder, these are words and terms that we hear people mention and talk about, and openly they actually are so open to admitting that this is part of their story and part of what they're dealing with on a daily basis, just shows us how much it is important to have these conversations today. And what does that feel like? I think for many people, they don't necessarily know what it feels like to have some form of anxiety. And if you're trying to understand or identify that feeling, that emotion, and that attachment to what that means to you and how it's channeling your performance, your behavior, your outcomes, your mental health on a daily basis, I think it's really important to do a personal check-in and ask yourself all of the right questions to understand more about your mental health status as a starting point. So when we ask the question, are you okay? What are we actually asking? Are we actually focusing on your mental health and how that equates to your behavior, your relationships, how you feel within yourself, how you work as a person, as a human, and your functionality on a daily basis? That's so important. We want to have a world filled with people who are happy and functional and thriving and doing the best they can, showing up to be the best versions of themselves every single day. And if we're impaired by a crippling attitude or thoughts around our mental health, then it's really not going to help us to thrive and survive well in a world full of high pressure, intense experiences every single day of our lives. I often think that my days are the good, the bad, and the ugly every single day of my life. So we're dealing with positive energy, but we're also dealing with negative energy and the impact of that. It's so important not just to do that personal check-in, but to work out, how am I actually processing these thoughts, these emotions, and how am I dealing with it? And I'd like to just focus for a second on what does that look like to do that personal check-in, and what kind of questions should you be asking yourself? So for me, I know if I'm feeling anxious, typically there's a knot in my stomach. I feel it in my belly. I know in Eastern cultures, they refer to this, that center of gravity. What does that mean? Where does that come from? And where do we feel our emotions first? And they're often not in your head. For me personally, I know that if I'm feeling anxious about something, there's a real knot and tension in my stomach. So that's a warning bell for me to say, oh, I've got a little bit of anxiety. There's something not quite right. How am I going to deal with that? So do I need to talk to someone first of all, or do I need to firstly think about changing my behavior so I'm changing that physiological response to the anxiety that I'm feeling? And I know for me, exercise is a great tool. It's one of the best things I can utilize to manage and deal with any moments of high stress and anxiety. Really important to not let that stress become so overwhelming that it gets out of control. So stopping it in its tracks, dealing in the moment, be true to yourself and focus on your own personal authenticity, and take a moment to breathe and allow yourself to know that this is how I'm feeling. How am I going to manage those thoughts and those emotions so that they don't snowball, they don't get out of control, and I'm not going to lead myself down the wrong path? I think exercise is one of the key critical things to utilize as a tool to manage stress and anxiety, but it's also super important to know when to reach out to your trusted advisor. Having a friend who you can really feel like they are the person who are always going to be a shoulder to lean on, they're never going to judge you, they will listen to you, and they'll provide you with possibly some feedback that is helpful. We can't always rely on our friends to give us the answers or to be that voice of reason, but maybe just someone to listen to how we're feeling. And that might be enough. It can be cathartic in itself just to have a conversation with someone close to you. I think it's also really critical to understand that your friends might not be the right people to give you the advice that you need depending on what you're dealing with in that particular moment. So, knowing when to reach out for professional help is also really critical. And I would encourage each and every person who's dealing with anything that looks like really high levels of stress, anxiety, depression, no matter what that looks like, and they're not feeling okay, to definitely reach out to a health professional who can help guide them through managing those situations and circumstances before it gets any worse. So, yeah, definitely stopping things in their tracks. I think it's also really important rather than just glossing over, are you okay? And often we ask people on, are you okay, how they're feeling, but we expect a really beautiful, happy response. And it's not always the case. And it's not always the way people are feeling. So maybe reframing that and doing that check in by asking, if you're not okay, what can I do to help? And so, really reversing that question sometimes I think is also important from an internal position, but also externalizing those thoughts and reaching out to others around you by really understanding that not everybody is going to be okay. I just think we're living in a heightened world where these kind of emotional states can lead to some really horrible things and some behaviors that we'd like to really prevent. And we know that suicide ideation and suicide in Australia has probably grown significantly. If we can build a community where people are confident and feel proud and are capable within themselves to reach out, I think this is one of the most important pieces around Why Are You Okay Day is such an important day to stop, think, reflect, and start with yourself. Even if you don't want to ask anybody else how they're feeling on Are You Okay Day, really make it about you. Do that internal personal health check and self reflect on where you are in the moment today and what are your needs and how are you addressing them. Look, I love my tribe, and I think loving your tribe and being able to connect with your tribe or your community is so vital in terms of really self managing. And of course, I'm human too. I have moments where life is just all a bit too much, and that sensation of feeling a little bit of overwhelm, it's not unusual. When you're running a business, life gets really tough. I might love what I do every day, but it doesn't mean it doesn't present a big mountain of challenges at any given moment. So, dealing with the challenges, yes, that can be tough. And interestingly enough, some of the tools that I share with my tribe or my community are things that I think are really valuable to help support me as well. So, whether that's Wim Hof breathing techniques and jumping in an ice bath, taking time out for your self care is super critical to self manage. Really, let's focus on self care as well on Are You Okay Day, not just asking the questions, but looking after yourself a little bit better and looking at your own work life balance. How do you connect with your community and what things are you doing regularly? So it just needs to be anything that is habit forming, you've got to do on a regular basis to make sure that you are consistently feeling great. And that takes hard work. So you've got to put in the work to be okay all the time because life is tough. So making sure that you're putting in those practices and those regular behaviors that become habit forming, I think is really critical. I love sticking to a routine. The discipline of having routine makes such a difference to self-managed care, whether that's getting up in the morning and going for a walk, taking time out to play with the dog, whatever that looks like is super important to that critical piece around making sure that you are okay. And in the moments that you're not, definitely make sure that you've got someone to talk to, community or otherwise, and also understand that your friends are not health professionals. So sometimes we just deny ourselves the opportunity or the time, space, and self reflection or awareness to know that it's actually time to reach out to someone else other than a friend to lean on and to gain some objectivity around how to manage a particular critical moment in life. I think in the world of business, we often say separate business and personal life, but that's actually not reality. Business is personal, and your business connections and the people that you work with consistently on a daily basis, they're part of your world and they're part of your life. We live within our business environment so many hours of the day. Having the ability to be vulnerable and to expose what you're dealing with to the right people, or the people who you work with so closely, who are mentors that are a mutually felt kind of emotional connection to the people that you are so engaged with all the time. It's so important to be your authentic self. So showing up and being authentic, having the conversations with the people who matter most. And yes, that can be in your daily world of business. And yes, business is personal. It's part of life. It's probably one of the biggest parts of your life that you're dealing with every single day. And then, of course, you can't ignore all the other stuff that you're dealing with. So at the moment, there's not enough tissues in the country for me because I've recently become an empty nester. So that's just one of the things that I'm dealing with in life at the moment. And it's pretty normal to have those feelings of a bit of loneliness, going home to a big house and all of a sudden, where are all the people? So we're all dealing with different things every single day. And I think we're really lucky if we can form those connections and relationships in our business world where we can download, debrief, and deal with our closest business connections. Look, I think feedback is so important, and what makes me feel so good, and it's self-serving on both sides, but what is the value that I gain from showing up and being part of the Yes Circle is listening to everybody else and being part of their journeys and seeing how much value they're able to get from showing up to the Yes Circle. And those conversations, they're a deep dive into so many different aspects of life that impact their journeys and where they're at. And how they connect and share with each other is just phenomenal. I love the fact that we do it on Zoom because we've got patients who could be anywhere around the country, but this is their opportunity to have a voice and be part of a community. And that is so spectacular about the Yes Circle. But I've seen people's attitudes and mindset and their whole approach to everything they're dealing with shift throughout the year of Yes, because it's such a positive, empowering community. And yes, the ones who show up, honestly, they are just the most incredibly beautiful people. That gives me so much joy. So I'm getting feedback from this gorgeous group of people, and it's not just about what I'm giving to them in terms of a presentation, but what I get from being a part of the journey with them is really spectacular. Are you okay day? Don't forget to stop and talk to someone close to you, but make sure it becomes part of your daily vernacular. Don't make it just about one day of the year. And the Year of Yes is actually one of my favorite things that we've ever introduced for our weight loss warriors and for our community, and for people wanting to reach out and connect and learn about how we can help them. And so many people, when they're on a weight loss journey, I would say over 95% of our patient population, like pretty much everybody on the planet, are dealing with some form of underlying, whether it's a trauma, a stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of the things that contribute and lead to complicating a weight loss journey. It's really important to unravel that, deal with it, and work within that framework where they've got professional team members supporting them on a daily basis. And the Year of Yes is just another add-on opportunity for community connection that I just love so much. It's been amazing. The year's not over, so there's still time for people to join, and I love growing our community. So if people want to jump on board, I'm so open to having new members join our community each and every month. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really do hope that people understand the value of Are You Okay Day and stop and reflect for a moment.